I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans.
And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field.
Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the Marching Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
Okay, Nigel. You're listening to Let Him Cook. This will be one of the more depressing Let Him Cook episodes probably that we've ever recorded. We have had some incredible luck or coincidence in that we started this podcast maybe in one of the best 1.5 stretches of Cyclone basketball. There hasn't been many episodes where we are recapping multiple losses. That's where we find ourselves. And speaking of just like not feeling good, you and I both. I was sick a couple days last week, missed work. That's why there was no podcast last week. Nigel, I know you're coming off of something. So I think, honestly, all of the Midwest is sick right now. KCCI just had like a plague. We had guys just calling sick every other day. So stay healthy, wash your hands. Nigel, you feeling any better than you were this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even I don't even know what it was. I think I just had some bad food. We went to Dave's Hot Chicken in Melrose Park for all my Illinois folk listening on the way back from the city because my buddy, he's getting engaged, so we had a get engagement party on Saturday. And on the way back home Sunday morning, had some hot chicken, and it came out the same way it came in.
A little too hot. Too hot.
Nigel was out of commish. Woke up the next day for work. Took a shower. You know, like how you take a shower anticipating to go to work?
Yeah.
And then right as I'm about to go out the bathroom, it's like, hey, big bro, come sit down real quick. And it was a no-go. So I sat yesterday out. And then I didn't know honestly, like I was already such in bad shape that I honestly forgot we were playing Kansas. I was that much out of in a brain fog that I was like, I don't want to feel this way and do a pod right after, God forbid we lose, especially coming off 2 games. Because after Saturday, my man, I'm feeling a lot different about this team than I was a week ago. So let's just take this Band-Aid off as fast as possible, please.
So let's talk. We were talking a little bit before the show. We've missed 4 games. So we beat Arizona State, and then obviously the 3-game losing streak to Arizona, Kansas State, and Kansas. Arizona State, let's keep it real brief because I think most Cyclone fans just want to weep and, feel terrible about themselves right now. But Curtis Jones, what did you say, 33 points? Is that what he finished with?
Yep.
So, I mean, really his last great game. Curtis is someone who's really struggled in the last 3 games. So, but good for him to have that performance. And really the last time we saw the Cyclones close out a game, I think they finished on an 18-3 run. That's a good road win. Wish I would have appreciated it a little bit more, knowing what we know now. But did you feel good going into Arizona after what you saw that Saturday? It was another quick turnaround Saturday to Monday. How did you feel going into Arizona after that game?
I felt fantastic. Even though it wasn't the prettiest win, it wasn't the prettiest 40 minutes. I told myself what has been this season, like we've talked about multiple times. Oz has also agreed that Iowa State has yet to play a perfect game. Right. Like I said earlier, to come off of a game where you go on that late game run, Curtis has the game he has, and then we win convincingly on the road by 15. I mean, I went into Arizona, who has not, outside of their conference season, has been a very underperforming team, very confident, and despite it being a Monday game, just didn't let it get the best of me as a fan, because for people who don't know, that's a very emotional game for me over the past few years, and of course because who would play well on a Monday off of a great win? I want to tread lightly with the transition from Arizona State to Arizona, because I understand that that's a weird travel day on Sunday, and then having to quickly turn around. But then again, having enough time, because I don't know if I pronounce this right. Is it Tuscan or Tucson? Tucson?
Yeah.
So from Tucson to Tempe, is that correct? Tempe?
I think other way around. I think Arizona State's in Tempe, Arizona's in Tucson.
Regardless, it's the commute is what I'm trying to get at. The commute from a Saturday to Monday game, that's not going to take all day. That's probably going to take. Right. I'm free balling. Couple hours on the road, and then you got all this time. We had a 9 o'clock start at Arizona. Yeah, it was a ridiculous amount of time that I think the ride wasn't that long, but you had a lot of time off your feet. And then boom, you got to go into a hostile environment. And then this team's also going to give you their best punch. Even with them not even playing their best basketball, I mean, they gave us opportunities to just put them away. And again, a lot of plays didn't go our way. We didn't finish a lot of end plays. My God, man, the way the Arizona game went to OT, I think you could have done anything else other than him. So everyone knows who I'm talking about. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
I hear you. I think all Cyclone fans are with you. Mm-hmm. Alec Busey asked a great question to TJ Altenberger, and I don't think it was mean-spirited or a harsh question. I think it's a tough one that you have to ask as a journalist, but it was a fair one. And he said, would you have done anything differently in the last 3 seconds of that game? Whether that's, ideally, Joshua Jefferson makes his first free throw, and then he makes a second one. You win against Arizona. That's a huge road win. He missed the first one, and then you have a couple options as a head coach. You could call a timeout right there, tell Joshua, hey, intentionally miss his second one so they can't, set up an inbounds play. Or foul as soon as they inbound it, make them shoot 2 free throws. Are you which kind of school of thought are you in? And then I'll give you my input.
The easy answer, and I was very adamant. I almost at the end of the game, at the end of the Arizona game, and even in overtime, kept asking myself, why are we even in overtime? I was really big. I was part of the let's just make both free throws and we're not in this mess. But realistically, outside of obviously making both free throws, that was the notion I would have gone with, which is the best case scenario. Definitely I would have gone for just a nice make the first one, and then the step. Let's see, Jefferson is right-handed, so take one step to your left on the free throw line and throw the ball as hard as you can at the rim, not the backboard. Don't throw it out of bounds. Hit it on the rim so that even if Arizona does get the ball, it's an awkward grab. They got to then turn around, and then they got to perform the heroics that went down on Monday. Because we've seen it multiple times. And again, me being a Duke fan as well, I've seen it in the UNC game with Trey Jones. It ended up going to overtime. They ended up winning it with Wendell Moore tipping it in at the buzzer. And then also Brian Zuback in the national championship against Gordon Hayward. They also did that where he made the first free throw. Coach K, he looks over at Coach K, and Coach K tells him, hey, miss it. He does the exact same thing. It's a weird, awkward rebound to where that they don't get enough time to, because here's the thing. If your back is turned to the sideline and you're able to get the ball, rip through, and then get a full clean shot off, you have a lot more better shooting mechanics and shooting motion, even from a low percentage shot that is a 75 3/4 quarter shot from full court. If you have to then, it's a different vibe to where if you were able to shoot a free throw, grab it, turn around with moving defense, transition defense in your way, and then also get off a clean look. I just feel like that would have been more of a better situation because if I'm not mistaken, there were 3 or 2 seconds left.
I think it was 2.9. So
yeah, I mean I'm living with that. If Caleb made it off of that, sure, but oh my God, I think the worst possible thing probably could have been to make the second one. I think the first one was the most important to make. Right. That didn't happen. But more so than anything at Arizona, I was just so mad that Caleb Love was the kid in pickup who did nothing the entire game and then hit the most important shots of the night. And if anyone watched Dude Perfect 10 years ago of their basketball stereotypes, and you know exactly who I'm talking about, a guy who shoots 2 for 17 the entirety of the game, but those 2 shots, one took you to overtime and then one was a dagger in overtime. That's just the type of player he is. And it's so irritating because it just seems like for whatever reason, whatever team I like, he's like, oh, bet, let me turn into Michael Jordan. And that's what happened last Monday. And I'm so sick and tired of him. He needs to go get a job. I'm tired of having this conversation about these old farts in college basketball. I just need them to go away. And I thought a post North Carolina Caleb Love was never going to give me any more problems, but
Right.
look at us now. So
Yeah.
that's fun.
So going back to the end of the game, and it just got talked to ad nauseum by fans of, should we have done this? Should we have done that? The thing is, like, a bad thing could have happened no matter what you did. And I think the chance of that bad thing happening no matter what you did is probably less than 2% of actually happening. But like you said, if he intentionally misses a second one, I think that is just generally a hard thing to do, whether you're a good free throw shooter or a bad free throw shooter. It's like the rim is a small target.
Yeah,
and I think that's
it's one of those plays that is better executed defensively without a timeout. Yeah. Like, don't get anyone set up. Like, imagine if Christian Laettner had to make that shot against Kentucky
without inbounding
the ball, without having all that time for Grant Hill to make a decision to get the ball down there. That play doesn't happen. Like, if you mean to tell me that that's a rebound off of a free throw, that's like the odds of that happening is insane. And you have to make it as awkward as you can for the opposition to go make a big play like that. Go ahead.
To play devil's advocate, Joshua Jefferson tries to intentionally misses it, doesn't hit the rim. Now Arizona gets to inbound the ball and they're only down 2.
Yeah.
Caleb Love is in the exact same situation, except now his 3-point shot is to win instead of to tie. And then the thing with, like, you foul under 3 seconds, I am always, if you're up 3, foul, but like the perfect window for that is like 6 to 10 seconds is where you want to be fouling. If you're up 3 and there is 3 seconds left and the guy is 70 feet away from the basket, like I said, there's a 2% chance that he makes that shot. He made that shot. That sucks. It went into overtime. And I really think, obviously Caleb Love hitting that shot feels like that was the end of the game. There was a sequence where, and the other thing I want to say about Arizona, Caleb Love, screw you, like you said, had a terrible game and then decided to make the biggest shot of the night. KJ Lewis.
Yeah, the biggest shots.
As soon as he hit that big one, he lit it up in overtime, but screw overtime. KJ Lewis played incredible. He comes off the bench for Arizona, but played Curtis Jones just about as well as we've seen anyone guard him. Just face guarded the hell out of him, made Curtis work for every single shot he took. And then Toby Awaka on the boards. That guy's coming alive in Big 12 play. And I think both those guys are huge reasons of why Arizona's kind of turned their season around. But Curtis Jones in overtime, it looked like he had just lost his confidence. There was a moment coming off kind of like a pin down screen where he had it was a split second, but I've seen him take that 3 more often than not. And he decided not to. We didn't get a point on that possession. Caleb Love came down the next possession, drained a 3. The place went crazy. And that to me felt like, I think that took it from like a 3-point game to a 6-point game. And I was like, man, that really feels like probably the end of tonight. So, dude, it sucked. I was unwell. That 3-point shot, I think, went in around midnight local time to send it into overtime. So a lot of tired Cyclone fans that Tuesday morning. And, a sign of things to come and what we're about to talk about. I'm not sure if we've seen Iowa State look the same since that shot, including overtime and then the past 2 games. It shook our confidence, I think.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I don't know. It's hard to then now navigate as a fan. Where do you go from here? Especially too because just I could see how obviously this season thus far for the most part has been extremely fun. I think for everyone involved, from the players, the fans, the coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think Arizona was a different level of adversity that none of us have seen this year. So it had people acting out of pocket, which leads me to my next point. Got some lore and information through Joshua Jefferson's mother via Twitter, and had some Cyclone fans feeling pretty bold in specific people's DMs. And I'll be the first person to say, Dylan, you saw me via our group chat. I was very big on Joshua. Just make bold free throws. Like, end of story. Why are we even in overtime? It should have been a 4-point win, or even a 1 point, win. Say Caleb hits that shot. Who cares? Go home. I even through all of that anger, I never thought, let me get in this college kid's DM and start saying ungodly things. And again, I'm paraphrasing for what Miss Jefferson went public on Twitter and told the public what would happen. And essentially there were some racial slurs being said to Mr. Jefferson, who, mind you, first year in Iowa, first year in this program, and maybe I don't even want to call this a bad game for him, but like the first bad overall team game we've had all year. And that's how it's a bad moment. And that's how we respond. Leave that shit to the Hawkeyes, man. If you're a grown man in a college kid's DM, you're a loser. You're a loser. Cut it out. Be better. That's not us. Okay. We had to be better. There's too much negativity in vibrato and all this, like everyone's talking real big behind the screen in this day and age, and we need to cut it out because we already have enough hate going on in this world. Like I'm not going to sit for it, and this is not like basketball is not going to be the one space where we're bringing all that hate we're seeing on a day-to-day basis to the news, to media, all that good stuff, and bring it to a place where it can bring people joy and bring people together despite their views and backgrounds and whatnot. So if I go, when I say this, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Cut the shit out. It's not us. Okay. We have to be better as Cyclone fans, because what incentives does that give the next person who looks like Joshua Jefferson to come to Iowa State? Yeah. We're no better than when Iowa's football team was under allegations and during the Black Lives Matter movement. Like it looks so bad on us, and we have to be better. We can't keep doing that because that's not us. End of story. And I just wanted that moment to just kindly call that out, because I was really mad, like for the most part, but luckily I had a week to cool off. But it was so out of character, and I could see on a bigger scale what this moment was doing, not only to our program, but also to our fans, like acting like we've never lost a conference game. Do we not remember where we were 3 years ago? Yeah. Let's please eat a piece of the humble pie for a second. Like, let's have some perspective, and let's not get crazy in 20-year-olds DMs like that. If you really ever tried to do that and then stop for a second mid-sentence of whatever you're saying, I hope you feel like the smallest piece of thing or whatever you whatever adjective you want to fill in there this world can imagine, because that's just the dumbest crap you could do ever. And I want people to be better. That's it. That's all. But sorry, just to get off of as if that wasn't bad enough, like the bad vibes were already really shaky after Arizona. That mojo comes into February, and we find ourselves in what looks like like a hole we can't dig ourselves out of. But again, I thought we were going to be able to bounce back on Saturday, and that just wasn't the case. So I don't know what's going to be the answer for these kids, but I don't know if Milan is totally the answer. You mean to tell me he was this much of a difference? I would beg to differ. I think, like you said, our confidence is shook, and we have to do something about it. End of story.
I think Kansas State is probably the most, clearly they're the worst team out of the three teams we've lost to. But, you could say Arizona, you're going into a charged environment. You have 1 day of turnaround. Caleb Love hits a ungodly shot that, Steph Curry misses that shot 7 times out of 10. He's the best shooter in the world. And for him to make that shot, whatever. You got 5 games to prepare for Kansas State. You're a 16.5-point favorite. Kansas State hasn't won a road game for 15 contests in a row. You haven't lost a home game for 29 contests in a row. It's like the ultimate nothing has to give game. Like Iowa State is dominant at home. Kansas State's terrible on the road. You can chalk this one up. At least that's what I'm thinking. It's a get your mojo back. We did it against UCF after a tough loss to West Virginia. This team should bounce back. We should, set the tone, turn Kansas State over 20 times, get out of there with a win, and then you're on to Kansas. Simply did not happen. Kansas State is probably the worst Iowa State has played, I think, all year. You could probably say the Kansas game too, but Kansas is a lot better defense than Kansas State is. To give Kansas State some credit, they're on a bit of an upswing. I think they've won 3 straight. I think they play tonight. If they don't play tonight, they play tomorrow. But still, to be a 16.5-point home favorite, and then I was just so disappointed by the lack of fight or pride that some of the guys are playing with. I mean, we're just not hustling. We're not rotating. Just like things that TJ has kind of built his empire on lacked that entire game. Really, the only positive was that 13-0 run in the second half where you're thinking, hey, Hilton Magic, maybe. Like, if it's going to hit, now's the time to hit. And it kind of came and went. That white kid for Kansas State, don't even know his name. I will never care to learn his name. Hit a 3, and then, that was kind of that. But the most disappointing game, I think, of the season was Kansas State.
Yeah, and, I mean, it kind of just, showed that basically, just quick as you can get that losing energy off of you as a team with the right type of loss, you can get it back. You can keep that on you for the remainder of a stretch of time. And I just think that's what was going on. I think there was almost too much time to have to sit with that Arizona loss, to where whether it's being said out loud or not, I think there is a lot of questioning from players all the way to the coaching staff of, what did go wrong, because as much as when we talked about, the post game of Arizona, they asked TJ, would you have done something differently? Quickly said no. I can't tell you with a straight face if that was necessarily the truth. I just don't think he was necessarily trying to shake things up. Now it could be both ways. It could be he meant that. No, end of story.
I think he did.
But
I think I sided with him. I don't think I would have done anything differently.
And
it sucks
fine,
that he moved it, but
yeah. But again, it also, I understand that coaches have a lot of time to come together and talk about something, whether that's in our face or not. So it's I'm also going to be the guy who's entertaining both possibilities. I'm not saying that's out of the picture or that's not what happened. That could have happened and that could have been it. But again, even if that is the what actually happened, that it's kind of like the elephant in the room. Should we have done something different? Should we have not? Are we now going to overthink other things that we're doing just in case something like that were to happen again? It's not necessarily a fault of TJ's staff or himself, from their basketball IQ or decision making. It's more so just human nature. I just feel however you want to paint it, Arizona was a little traumatic. That's a very traumatic way to when you leave a basketball game up to God or probability or whatever you believe in, that's the determining factor that can send you down a wormhole if you were even the slightest of an overthinker. And I know a lot of basketball coaches are overthinkers because they got to prepare for A, B, C, D, B, G, C, D, Q, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I just feel even if it wasn't being brought up as the main problem, maybe that energy was brought into both Kansas and Kansas State, despite Kansas State being a home game and the perfect opportunity, like you said, to do a bounce back game right before going into Allen Fieldhouse. But again, it just seems like everyone's kind of in a shell again. And I don't know how that, because while the Arizona game was not the most ideal way to lose, for us to be in this hole that we find ourselves in now, it's hard to argue that it wasn't traumatic because people are playing like a shell of themselves. So that's really the problem. It's just confidence is now at an all-time low, despite TJ saying people's attitudes after the Kansas game were feeling okay. That's great, but it's a little bit more of the on my end of like I need to see it before I can really believe it now as a fan. And they got to understand that too. Like, hey, we owe it to our fans to show, hey, we haven't lost our mojo. Like, we got to come back and play like with the identity we've been having this entire year, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of question marks, not only for your fans but for the committee. We're from an without a doubt a Final Four team to now things are getting real shaky, and this is the worst time to get shaky. Like, we almost got through January untouched, and now we're dealing in a situation where we got touched up, and I'm tired of it. Like, I'm already sick of it. This is as much as I want to lose for the rest of the year and the rest of the schedule in a cakewalk. So we have to figure something out before it's too late. End of story.
And Kansas State, what's disappointing, sometimes you play a team like this, it's some guy not even on the scouting report drops a career high 25 points. No, it was Kansas State's best players. Doug McDaniel did have a career high, but he was one of their huge, NIL guys from Michigan. 20 points. First time he's got 20 points as a Wildcat. Coleman Hawkins played incredible. I mean, these are the guys that have to be at the top of the scouting report, and the guys that Otts is challenging his players to say, hey, you can't let this guy beat us. It's exactly what Kansas State did. Their best players beat us. Our best players, Kurt and Keyshawn, shot a combined 7 for 24 from the field. That's for 27, 28%. I mean, it's just like it was a combination of your best players having a terrible game, their best players looking like their best players. And one player that has been, for the most part, consistent, a little bit of turnover issues. Taman Lipsey has been really solid during this stretch. And I think that does speak to just his character as a point guard and as a leader. He's never going to be a vocal leader, but for him to really just kind of, he led the team in points against Arizona and Kansas State. I don't think he led the points against Kansas.
No, Jefferson led in, I think, all categories against Kansas.
Yeah, tied with, he had 11, Taman had 11. God, that game was terrible. I don't even want to talk about that Kansas game. Taman Lipsey's played well. There has become a problem with Curtis Jones that every team we play knows, hey, if we just face guard the hell out of Curtis Jones and switch on everything, we'll take our chances. Because a lot of times you're seeing, on the other side of the court, if Nate Heisey's in the corner or even Keyshawn's in the corner, that defender is sitting like 2 feet away from the paint and will just stay there unless the ball is reversed across court, and they will let either of those guys shoot a corner three and just kind of live with the results over there. And that just causes so many problems. And I think Curtis being asked to carry so much of the load on offense has kind of caught up with him, as teams know if we can cut the head off the snake, even if Taman Lipsey scores 20 points, who else is going to step up for them?
Yeah, it's not going to be enough.
That's kind of where we're at.
And that's the problem too. It's like, I get it in theory. I have a big problem with our bench as obviously like this losing streak continues, but it just shows that while it's good to have a goon like a Chatfield in a game, you do need people with a bit more offensive ceiling. Even with Heisey, I really thought this would be a great opportunity with Momcilovic out. That hey, like now's the time to obviously show people that you're not even that guy, but just like you're gonna get the ball a few times, knock down some shots. And again, I know it's easier said than done because it's like, oh, well, I'm not getting all the touches in the world, and sometimes we let Curtis go. I get that, but dog, we didn't. Nate Heisey, we didn't bring you on the team just to play defense. We saw something there offensively with potential of how you could add to the team, whether it's 3-point shooting or just getting to the rack. Like you don't just because you're the white guy coming on the bench doesn't mean you have to shoot threes. Like you can get your bread and butter at the rim. You're a strong 6'6" frame. There's no excuse why you're throwing up you're having a goose egg, and then I can see your confidence just off a box score alone that you're not even trying to get one off or just trying to make an impact offensively. Like it's a reason why Curtis has become guardable. It got to a point where you're a decoy out there. And I'm sorry, going forward, I think we have to do a better job in the transfer portal of just looking for guys who can offer that kind of, again, two-way-esque, like, hey, I can play defense, I can be, but like let's get a guaranteed 3-and-D guy, because there's a ton of them in the portal, especially for a team that, again, up until this point was solidified as one of the best in the nation. Like, there's not a lot of downs to why you would want to come play for Iowa State. So I want to see more out of our bench, but if going forward, and because again, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, as it keeps escalating, it gets to a point where I can't really defend someone anymore about just not playing confident. Like you're one of the oldest guys on the team, and you're just not showing it in your play of being out. And it's like, here's the thing: if our oldest guy is going to play like this, I don't know if people are against playing Noyes, but at this point, throw him out there. Like, let's see if something comes out of it. Let's see if he has a Demarion Watson moment, because as much as Demarion can offer us off the bench, I think he's pretty much been the really only productive person. So really, from a rotation where we thought we had 8 tough, strong guys, without Milan, we really only have 6. And I wouldn't mark Watson as a lock for having a great night off the bench. It's kind of just like opportunity. When opportunity comes, he's going to capitalize on it. But I think a huge portion of what's separating in a conversation where we're one of the best 3 teams in the nation last week with Auburn, Duke, and us, just the no-brainer difference is our depth, our lack of depth as to why we are number 3 in that conversation. And again, I want us to get to that point where we can compete with those teams, but we're not going to be able to unless our bench can also produce as well, because that's the kind of the luxury that those teams have. Pettiford can come off the bench and give us hell like he did in Maui, and like he's been doing all in SEC play. Isaiah Evans can come off the bench, hit a bunch of threes. It's just so helpful to have options, even from people who aren't averaging 9, 10, 11 points a game. And I just feel like unless Iowa State has those type of guys, none of our players who come off the bench ever really have that confidence to go play like a starter. You don't have to be a starter to go play like a starter, if that makes sense. So again, go ahead.
I can think of one, and it was Curtis Jones, because once upon a time he was coming off the bench.
He was Nate Heisey. Like last year, he was Nate. Like that was his role, and that's why I know it's easier said than done. At the end of the day, I'm not out there playing. I understand that, but when you have a goose egg and you didn't get a layup, you didn't attempt a layup. You didn't even try to get to dude, it's right here, and I need you to get out of your head, please, because it is too late. This is not you and I. We don't have time for this late in the season, and I just want to see better production from our bench overall. And I don't know if we're going to get that this late in the year, because usually people want to see those strides come December and January, and we just haven't seen them, especially out of Heisey from the offensive end.
I'm going to push back a little bit, because we did. We saw Braden Chatfield had 7 offensive rebounds. We've seen Nate Heisey play really well in non-conference games. It has gone missing. There is more being asked of them.
And let me reiterate that. That's a perfect way to put it. I don't want to say it was never there. It's just not here right now.
Not there right now. 100%.
And now would be a great time to, hey man, let's try to put an impact. Let's try to make an impact. Let's try something, because I'm the goose egg from both of them is what's baffling me. We didn't shoot a layup. We didn't get to. Oh, dude, man!
No field goals attempted from either of them against Kansas State. They were both 0 for 0. I think both had a rebound, and that was it. And so, you're going to need more, without a doubt. You got to do something. You're getting cardio at that point.
You're out there getting a Tony Sale stat. Bro is out there just running. What? Come on, man. We got to be better.
And like I said, I think it can still happen. I like Curtis Jones. You were talking about Todd Pettiford and Isaiah Evans. Dog, it was Curtis Jones. Like that guy was the best player coming off the bench in America the last 3 or 4 years. Like that guy was insane off the bench. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't think Milan's going to fix all this. There's a couple things just like literally by him being on a basketball court that things change. One is spacing. Even if Momcilovic isn't making shots, his presence alone does not allow the defense to sag off as much as they're sagging off right now. The threat of him is enough to keep a defense honest. That inevitably opens up driving lanes. That is one thing that will happen as soon as he's back on the court. I'm not saying he's going to drop 20 points in his first game and shoot 50% from three, damn near what he was before he got hurt. But there are things that will simply get easier. Heisey and Chatfield are going to go back to being asked to do less. Curtis Jones, I don't know if he'll come off the bench or stay in the starting lineup. That will be to be seen kind of a thing. Curtis is a hooper, and I don't think it really matters if he's coming off the bench or not. But for the best defender to basically face guard him the whole game, that has to be super frustrating because he just wants to get to his spots and he's not being allowed to do so. Guys are being super physical with him. Again, KJ Lewis, shout out. I wish you were a Cyclone. A lot of respect for you. Not a lot of love for anyone else on Arizona. But we just need more out of the guys that, like I said, we've seen them do it. So I'm not going to sit here and say, our bench is cooked because I've seen them produce. And Watson, he has a lot of fight. Like, you can't take that from him. He's never going to be the most skilled basketball player on the court. But we just need all
when I'm on that spiel, I'm not on Watson. Like, I know. I'm just saying that's it. Like, imagine looking at the bench and the only person that shut up was Watson. That's it? Are we serious right now? Like that I'm mad at the K-State game because that was like really that was a prime example of like your confidence is gone, and that starts with you. Like, before anyone else can believe in you, you have to believe in you. And I can't tell you that from a podcast. I can't, no one can tell you that you have to do some soul searching, and you have to do it fast because we don't have much time to mess around, especially if you want to be remotely competitive come the end of the regular season for conference play. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
No, and just like the 4 losses that we've had in Big 12 play, kind of a Javon Small masterclass in Morgantown, a Caleb Love prayer. But the last 2 games for me are, hey, what the hell's going on? It has gone from, man, that's a tough break to we don't look like the same team we did 2 weeks ago. Something has changed. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, we'll figure it out. I will say the next 4 games a lot more favorable than our last 4 games, but we still got to show up. I mean, we just like Kansas State, I would have said damn near a lock for a win, and we got embarrassed on our home court. So there is a lot left of the season to be had. Before we get to Kansas, I want to ask you this because you kind of said something earlier about it. Do you think the ceiling for this team has changed at all based on the last 3 games?
Yes. And again, it's the dynamic. And again, I'm not calling Milan Kyrie Irving in this example, but it's the dynamic change of losing a starter for a period of time and then getting him back in the postseason or close to the postseason. Now, again, it wasn't as drastic. How this can change the dynamic of a team where a team can go without, figure it out for a second, and then in the moments where you don't expect them to crumble, they crumble.
Yeah. And
again, I'm only bringing up that example because they came off an ACC championship, come to the tournament. They played Derek Williams in Arizona, and ironically Arizona continuously causing me pain. So that's cool. But so they beat them in the Sweet 16. The clear favorite in that one, and Derek Williams puts on a masterclass, becomes a lottery pick because of it. And again, it's a great team exiting the tournament early. So that's my fear. again, and I don't want to project another team's, woes on us, but it definitely shows limits where I thought this year we had a bit more of a deeper bench than we do, when really it was just Curtis. And then because Curtis is coming off the bench and making said impact that he was doing, again, because the dynamic is different with him as a starter, putting up those numbers. Like that 33 points he had as a starter is different than any 20-point game he had off the bench, because on a good night, Milan was close to double digits, and then Curtis was also coming off the bench having that electric performance. So then it makes Chatfield and Heisley, it's like they're an afterthought, so they can come out and perform. Now it's like, we see you, but we don't have to worry about you. And then because of that, then their confidence is shot. So to answer your question, I don't necessarily think like this is the cap, but I think it definitely shows some limits that I didn't see before, just because things were working out for us and now they're not. Yeah. And I guess in harder times, it's just easier to see what really is a problem on your team. And really, I know a lot of people around our circle have not been the nicest to Nate Heisey, and I've been very adamant and encouraging up until this point. But after Saturday, man, that was kind of my breaking point with him. And then to see kind of just the non-productiveness, and then also just the disrespect the other team is showing you, and you're just not moved. You're not even getting to the rim, man. Like what are we doing? Like, and I'm not saying Heisey got to come out here and score 20 points. Like, but dog, let's see something. Let's see an attempt to get out of this funk. Because if you're just not going to do anything, you might as well not be there at all. You might as well stay in your dorm room, because what are we doing?
I looked up so combined, Heisey and Chatfield are 0 for 1 in the last 2 games. They have one attempted field goal between the two of them. That has to be higher. Another thing that got brought up, we force a lot of turnovers. And I mean, I could look up advanced stats, but I don't even know if this is tracked. The amount of times we turn it over right after we turn the other team over, like it feels like points off of turnovers has really dropped. We're still forcing turnovers, but we're not capitalizing like we were early in the season. Our transition doesn't look as smooth. And that's something that Momcilovic really shouldn't have that big of an impact on. That's something that was our guards just went downhill so damn hard. Keyshawn would take guys 1-on-3 at the rim in transition. Taman had some incredible finishes using his body. Curtis would pull up for 3. We're just not capitalizing on the same stuff we were. And like you said, it's, this is a team showing weaknesses we didn't think we had. I thought as long as we're forcing turnovers, as long as we're rebounding the ball, we can play pretty bad and still be in a game. And that was not the case the last 2 games. And so it gives you pause when, in March, if, the shots aren't falling and you are you're forcing turnovers, you're playing really good defense, but you're not able to capitalize, you can still lose that game pretty easily. So, I don't want to say, because I think it really does, let's wait to see what Momcilovic looks like and see if we look like that team we thought we were before we say, we're not a Final Four team anymore. But we're playing different. I kept saying, unless I see a team that I haven't seen all season, we're going to beat Kansas State. That kind of now I can't say that. I've seen us, throw up a goose egg against a bad team at home. We can lose to anyone. That kind of, invincibility mindset that I think a lot of the fans had, some of the players had, that is gone. So, and sometimes that can be a good thing. I would rather get punched in the mouth in, early February, late January than late March. So if we have to take our lumps now, and this is for a better result at the true end of the year, by all means, it sucks right now. My feelings are hurt. I'm not having fun, Nigel. I'm not having fun.
And from a troll perspective, I wanted to get on here. I felt real good going to Arizona. I didn't actually go to Arizona, but mentally, I felt real good about going to Arizona and then turning around and taking on both Kansas teams. A lot on the table. Yeah. A lot on the table to be eaten. And one of them was we had Caleb Love. I didn't have a successful Caleb Love hate watch. I didn't have a successful Jerome Tang hate watch. And then I didn't have a successful Hunter Dickinson hate watch. Yeah. And between those three, I felt like walking into traffic. Just going to be perfectly honest. But again, I want to stay remotely positive, but I had to point out the negatives. And the negatives, I think, on a greater scale outside of our guards kind of playing like, I don't even want to say a shell of themselves because they're still putting up numbers, but like,
it's not like efficient.
Yeah, they're half-ass. Yeah. And it's like, you're better than this. They know they're better than this. And that's the frustrating part is everyone knows that they're better than this in this situation. So it's a matter of just turning it around. And I just feel like outside of Arizona, we really, I don't know, man. I know you said earlier that this is like going to be not as bad of a stretch, but I beg to differ because outside of, let's see, a senior night versus BYU and an Arizona game in March back-to-back, 8 o'clock at home, I don't see that many okay, maybe Cincinnati, but even then that's a 3 o'clock game. I don't know about that one. But again, I don't like going to UCF because again, that's a team you overlook the first time, come back on their territory. I don't know how we play necessarily, especially with Milan fresh back. Because I would assume by February 18th we have Milan back in the lineup and whatnot. But it just going forth, I mean, I don't feel confident going into this last stretch because it's a little odd. We only get TCU once this year. And it's this Saturday at 11 a.m. So hopefully we can find our groove then. But again, even this remaining stretch of the year is not guaranteed. So I think it's all about our mentality. And again, if like TJ said, if people were level headed and not too emotional yesterday and just not too woe is me, I think we're in a lot better space than most teams would be. You know, we're not Auburn, we're not fighting on the plane and whatnot, but I just hope we were able to not. Obviously, I'm glad the team showed TJ we're gonna be okay, we're fine. But I want the guys through their play to show us that hey, we're gonna be all right. We're still that team you guys have been loving since the beginning of November, and I just want us to finish strong because this last stretch can really hurt us, especially for seeding purposes, and we know how valuable it is to go into any bracket, no matter what we are, not just a 1 seed, but just overall, we want a good draw. And the lower you get, we know how it is. 2 seed, we can get knocked out by a 3 seed. Like you never really have that guarantee. So I would like to go into the tournament still at the 1 seed, but I just don't know after this stretch that we've been playing.
I think, truthfully, the 1 seed is out of question. I think Houston's going to be the 1 seed out of the Big 12. I am going to push back pretty hard on the end of our schedule. We have easily played the toughest part of our schedule. I think the next 3 home games are locks. If we lose any of those games, we should be embarrassed, and we shouldn't be even a 2 seed. At UCF, give a little bit of pause. The bounce house, that is a good home environment. They got the palms in the student section. At Houston is cinema. That was a hand-to-hand combat situation last year at Houston. I expect nothing less. Texas Tech just beat Houston at Houston, so it's doable. And then you finish at Oklahoma State. That should be cake. Home against Arizona, home against BYU, at Kansas State. And if the players aren't fired up for that one on CBS on March 8th, I can't help them. To me, the 2 hardest games left are at UCF and at Houston. We shouldn't drop another home game, and if we do, I will pull my hair out, and I have a lot of hair to pull out for those watching this podcast. So, this is where the schedule opens up. Milan should be reintroduced to the lineup. This is where you got to figure your shit out, because you can't start figuring stuff out in early March when it's home against Arizona, home against BYU, at Kansas State. That can't be when you decide to turn it on. That's too late. You got to figure it out literally today. And College Game Day, allegedly, as of now, is going to be in Ames on Saturday for a team that has lost 3 games in a row. Just knowing Iowa State fans and knowing Hilton Coliseum, I'm sure that place will still be bananas. It is just kind of a weird moment, because I think ESPN and quite frankly Iowa State fans were expecting to still be a top 4 team when College Game Day came to town. It is very likely we won't be a top 10 team this time next week. So it's just a weird moment in the season for sure. We've seen us lose 3 straight games, but I really think there's an opportunity to win every game except maybe 1, maybe 2. I would be a little disappointed if we lost 2 more games. At Houston's a tough pill to swallow, but you really got to handle your business. If you want to seriously be, back in that national conversation, which I think Iowa State will be out of, unless we prove the country otherwise. I think we are no longer going to be talked about at ESPN halftime shows for a SEC game. We are off the radar. And, this team has to take that personally and really fight the rest of the season, because we're not going to get the benefit of the doubt like Kansas or Duke or Kentucky. Like, we're not them. So everything is earned. And if you want to earn a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you can't leave it up to the committee.
Thing is, like, those teams bounce back. Like, even in moment, like, I know Kentucky lost to Ole Miss today. And I think they're coming off a weekend loss as well, if I'm not mistaken. Did they lose on Saturday?
I don't remember.
I think they lost. I don't know. I can't tell off my top of my head. I was just shocked they lost again today because they've been dropping a few. So it's not just us. Some weird's in the air. I don't know what it is.
And just lost.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's like out of the picture. I just know we're the type of team to lose a game we have no business losing, i.e. West Virginia, i.e. Kansas State. I could see us losing at Oklahoma State. I'm so serious. I'm so serious right now. Like, and I'm not saying from an X's and O, from like an analytical perspective, it's a lock perspective. Like, I just know this team, and when you turn your head, kick your feet up, and try to watch a basketball game in peace, they give you a reason to want to give yourself a swirly. Okay, and I've given myself 3 swirlies over the last week and a half, so I'm not entirely confident. And again, that's why I said I know I'm not the only fan feeling this way. Like, it's going to take them. It starts with them putting more confidence in us, because we can only do so much as fans. Like, we can be excited as we want for games, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to see results. And also, why the hell is College Game Day coming when we're playing TCU?
I have no idea.
Like, dude,
I have no idea.
Is Miles Davis coming back for the game? Oh my God. Anyway, terrible pick. But I would have rather had College Game Day at Houston. Like, even though that doesn't do us any favor, it's still a better game to do. But I say all that to say this. Like you said, while I think the harder part of our schedule's over, I also think this part isn't easy either. And it's just going to be a matter of how your approach is. And your approach really has to be one game at a time, because I don't want the team to be thinking like I am of, oh, shit, we've lost to OK State in the past at OK State. We're going to do it again. No, you got to take it one game at a time. And as you can see, when we got ahead of ourselves as podcasters, we got humbled very fastly. So I don't want to do that anymore going forward. But again, our next subject of focus is obviously TCU. I think it's a very doable, winnable game. And we're just going to have to look at every game like that from now on, because I don't really want to get personal again till we play Arizona. And I think everyone knows why. Because oh my God, you have an opportunity to do something hilarious. Right? What were you saying? Please continue.
On paper, like, that's when College Game Day should come to town. Like,
yeah.
Oh, you kidding me? I don't know if that's on a Saturday or a Tuesday or whatever. Bring your ass to town. Yeah, ESPN.
8 p.m.
Take a week off. We don't need you.
Get Jay Billis. To the Coliseum ASAP. Okay, and get him a what's it? Clone cone.
Cone. Yeah,
get him a clone cone while you're at it. But I truly believe we have 2 more opportunities to do something really special, and that's win at Houston and then beat Arizona at home. And then 2, March 8th. I know a lot of people's focus will be towards, seeding and obviously seeding for the tournament, the conference tournament. But even Kansas State, you got to get your leg back. Like any team, we have an opportunity to put away twice or get back to split the series. Please do, because I can't take a sweep from anybody in this league, especially when we're on a down year for the Big 12. Like I just want to be able to get out of this alive, but it's not going to be easy. But I think this team's very capable of doing it when they're at full strength.
And I do want to just I'm a Ken Pom sicko. I probably visit Iowa State's Ken Pom page every single day. Just running numbers right now, even after the 3 losses, analytically, we're better right now than at any point we were last year. That we were a 2 seed last year, for those who forget. So, grand scheme of things, we're still okay. Obviously, you need to start winning again for that to stay where it is. If it keeps dropping, then yeah. But the other thing is, every great Iowa State team, like you said, has lost games they shouldn't lose. The great George Niang teams lost games they shouldn't lose. Pfizer and Tinsley did the same thing. This is not a new, unique thing that is happening. Also,
what is it? Dylan, I'm a little new, evidently, to this, and I just need you to kind of fill me on from as long as you could cognitively remember. Why? What is it like? Is it just because? Oh man, it's Iowa State. I'm not trying to hear that anymore. That's not a good enough reason. What is it? What is it that no matter what the DNA of the team is, no matter who steps on that floor, whoever's in that cardinal and gold is going to crap in moments they're not supposed to crap, and they're going to show out in moments they're on paper not supposed to show out. Why can't we just be consistent? I almost commend the 2021 team who went 2-22 for being consistent. We knew what we were getting every single game. And any other year, it's been real hot and cold. And this ain't a Katy Perry song, all right? This is a college basketball season. This is a respectable college basketball program. Why can't we be consistent? No matter what team is there. What is it? Please tell me. I need an answer. I need a reasonable, rational answer.
Nigel, I want you to sit down for this.
I'm down.
Okay. There is probably maybe 3 teams a year, and we were in the conversation this year for sure. 3 teams, high major, because sometimes you get a Wichita State that goes 30-2 in the regular season. There's 3 teams a year that don't lose games they shouldn't lose. And often it's the same 3 teams. It's Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky. It's some combination of the Blue Bloods. It changes year to year, but it's the usual suspects more often than not. And it comes down to having a Hall of Fame coach like Duke has had and North Carolina has had and Kansas has had and Kentucky has had. And it comes down to having way more talented players than everybody else. So for those of us that aren't part of that elite group of college basketball programs, you might get your 1 year out of 15 or 20 where it's holy hell, we caught lightning in a bottle. I really thought this year could have been the year where we're just holy shit, we have way more talent than we know what to do with.
We're good. I thought too. That's why I was asking.
It turns out that's not true.
But it's some of the teams you just listed, I can tell you with a straight face, we are better than this year. Give us North Carolina right now, and we're going to put them in full Nelson.
Yeah, I'm not saying this year. North Carolina sucks. But when they really had things going, Psycho T, the Marcus Page teams, the Villanova over the past 10 years has had teams like that where it's just UConn that are just super dominant. And for the far majority of college basketball programs, including Iowa State, who is a good college basketball program but not a S tier, you're going to take your lumps in a season. And I think it's that part of the season right now.
I know. And again, that's respectable. I get where you're coming from. It's just the way it's happening now in kind of an avalanche fashion. It's I don't know, man. It almost feels like, I honestly, realistically, and I saw this on Twitter, so I'm gonna entertain it. I am a tad superstitious. I also believe in a conspiracy theory from time to time, depending on how good it is. I'm gonna say, and again, only because I'm wearing it, it's the slam curse. If
Tennessee got that too. Tennessee got that junk,
dude. Since then, since Ryan Hammer came to Hilton Coliseum, things have been up.
We've
things have been
down
real
bad.
off. Since I purchased this shirt, things have been a little shaky. Outside of UCF and Arizona State, which, I mean, if we would have lost those teams, you could have set me on fire, me on fire, and watch me burn.
Yeah.
But we just haven't played well since then, and I don't know if there's much to it outside of it's just we're cursed. But it just always seems to be like during this January and February period, we really do fall apart. It's some fashion. Again, it can be drastic and can be brief. We kind of seen it. We get creative with how we lose sometimes, at least in the Otzelberger era. And again, it almost also entertains the ideology of no more scheduling IUPUI. Like, I'm really getting tired of not really having your back against the wall till January. It really does us no service. I get it. It's real cute to get here in November, and just because everyone's excited, it's basketball season again. Everyone wants to just watch a win at Hilton Coliseum. But what if you actually had a team that was worth a damn come in there and try to walk in your trap and take over your trap before everyone in your conference tries to do that over and over and over again? Like, being in Saturday gave me a perspective of being undefeated in Hilton was very cute for the last year and a half, but it can be taken away in an instant. So really, it's not even an accolade worth having. They don't even get, it's not like you get a banner for that. So it's a matter of like, let's stop trying to find what I've learned in Iowa State athletics, and I get it. We don't have all the resources. We don't have the facilities. We don't have all the high star players that a lot of these other schools have. But I just find that sometimes we inflate a lot of the like not that big of a deal accomplishments, because there's a lot of people who go a certain amount of time I think when Kansas was undefeated at home for a period of time, they didn't even blink. It was just like, yeah, this is kind of what happens. We do it, and again, I get it. Those teams have more resources than us, but at what point are we going to try to enter the party? Like, I get it. It's at first it's going to feel a little awkward. It's going to feel like we don't have enough in the tank, but that's how you get to the dance is, competing at that level, despite who you have. Like that's what makes great players great, is when they can take over Goliath. So it's just a matter of, I know I went on a bit of a tangent, but I wish that we would have been a tad bit more prepared outside of Maui and Marquette to take on all of this, what we just endured, because I think we would have handled a lot of these situations better, just because it's like we would have gotten that the whole undefeated Hilton crap out of our system a long time ago, because it's like, what good is that going to do you? Like, no one gives you a trophy for that.
You got to be Kansas State. I'm not too upset about losing on the road to Arizona. I'm not too upset about losing. The way that it happened sucks. That's not a bad loss. Arizona's a really good team. Kansas is a really good team. They haven't lost on Big Monday with Bill Self at Fog Allen ever. 38-0. A team has literally never won the game we played yesterday. And like, to push back a little bit, the SEC is on one. The Big 12, like you said, I mean, like, we do have our easiest stretch of the schedule coming up. It's not guaranteed wins like Duke has right now. Duke has guaranteed win almost the rest of the season.
Is a joke. I'm not trying to put them in the conversation right now of like caliber of conference, but it's just a matter of, my God, dude, like, I get, we could have went 2-2 over the course of the four games we're talking about today, but to go 1-4 over the last four, dude, come on. It's been the biggest punch in the mouth. And just to who we lost to in that order, those teams, dog.
It was kind of the trifecta of like people in the Big 12. Caleb Love's a new one for a lot of Iowa State fans. I know you've hated
Lore goes back to Carolina. Like, when Caleb Love had 30 on him, people hated him back then.
Like, Keyshawn outplayed Caleb, both of them from St. Louis. Keyshawn outplayed Caleb Love that whole game. And, like, I could see Keyshawn taking it personal in the second half, where he was like, let me show this kid who got all the accolades from my home city, got all the love coming out of high school. I had to go to UNLV. He went to Carolina. Like, let me show him who's who. And then for it to end like that, that sucked. And it wasn't Keyshawn's fault. Caleb Love just hit that shot. But like and then Tang and then Dickinson, like it was the three guys that I really didn't want to lose to.
Oh,
yeah. What a stretch it's been, Nigel. We gotta kind of start wrapping up, but it has not been a fun 10 days as an Iowa State basketball fan.
It hasn't been. And I don't want fans to take away that I'm trying to compare us to essentially the blue bloods of college basketball. But when I see a team like Auburn do what they have done this year, and just no matter of even when Broome was out, like they had a guy out, they arguably had their best player out and didn't miss a beat. So what are we doing that's so wrong? The team that we were up by 20 points in the first half and lost on a tip-in, they had this essentially the same scenario happen where their four-man was out for a long stretch of time. They had the same exact scenario happen, and they didn't miss a step. They didn't miss a beat. They didn't miss anything. So what is going on? And that's really where my question for you earlier was rooted at. It's not just Duke. It's not just Kansas. It's Auburn is there. Like Auburn is not
outside of their Final Four run, and I'm sure that team even took bad losses. Like when else has Auburn done this ever? Charles Barkley wasn't doing this.
So what's our excuse?
I'm just saying it happens like once every 50 years for the other schools, and this is the 1 year it's happening to Auburn. Unless you're one of those schools, you get a year like this for Auburn where it's like, oh my God, they're the best team in the country by a country mile. And that's just not us this year. And it can only be one or two teams every year.
I don't know if you can go say that initially. Like with how we played Auburn at full strength, I don't know if you can say, well, that's just not us this year. Like I don't want to
3 games.
Yeah, but I mean,
in a row.
That's my point. Is essentially like, what was our excuse?
Yeah.
And again, no one knows that answer. I don't know if anyone's going to solve that problem. The only thing that's going to be able to solve that problem is if we can just beat TCU. For the love of God, people, if we lose to TCU, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it.
Nigel, let's hope we have a very easy, fun game to recap next week. Just one game we can go all in. That one's an 11 a.m. tip, College Game Day. Coming to town as of now. I hope that's still the case. Is there anything you want to say before we smoke a very sad cigarette and get out of here?
No.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate.
Pour one out. Nigel, a lot of season left. Let's see what this next 4-game stretch brings, and let's go from there. Are you with me on that?
No, that's fine. Comparison is a theft of joy. I need to calm down. I'm sorry, guys. It's just, I don't know what to make of this. Never seen something like this. Never seen the start we had, and then the finish, the middle we're having. Like it,
right? I
don't know, dude. This sport makes zero sense, and I love it some days, and I hate it other days. It's the most toxic relationship I have in my life. So that's fun.
It's always a great day to be a Cyclone. Some days are better than others. Let him cook.
This is not one of those days.
See you guys.